Now I'll just be double checking that we're streaming. We're probably streaming right now, out to YouTube, Facebook. Facebook might be missing today. Yep, looks like the stream is going. And then I'll start letting people in from the waiting room. Admit everyone. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Great to see you once again. Ethan, Janney, and we've been doing this thing for a few years. I'll give an introduction very soon because we're opening up the room slightly late today. I'm going to spotlight myself, and I will spotlight today's guest as well. And we'll admit a few stragglers I see coming in. And oh, cool, Alan Etter. Good to see Alan over here. That's great. All right, welcome, welcome. Let me give it the intro since we're just about 5 minutes in anyways, and then we'll roll into our conversation today. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our crafts, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. Find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to this Saturday program for just $16 a month and get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, which we're hosting right now, as well as the archival recordings of over 185 episodes in our member area. And you can join Piano Tech Radio Hour using the link bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And we're going to give an introduction to our guests today momentarily, but also we have a sort of, I believe, we want to bring Wayne Ferguson, a sort of regular participant and audience member, to the program up to speak a little bit up front about some current events. I think Wayne is here. Let's see if Wayne is here and ready to go. Hey, Wayne, can you hear me? Are you unmuted?
Yep. Yes, I'm unmuted. Yep.
Hi, how's it going?
Yep. Doing pretty good.
Yeah. You want me to bring you up? See if I can add a spotlight. Hey there, Wayne.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see.
Yeah. I have to say, Wayne, you told me you had COVID and times were you were going through some stuff, but you're looking great, man. You're looking better than ever, I have to say.
Well,
you must be on the up and up.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been sick for quite a while. So almost I've been missing in action for about maybe 2 months, 3 months. So thereabouts. Yeah. So, but I'm back.
Have a good
I came. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. You
Yeah,
wanted to share.
I came back. I wanted to be out here today because I wanted to make a bit of an announcement, a sad announcement. Everyone knows David Anderson quite well, and David's wife, Tanya Regrier, amazing artist. I'm sorry to say that Tanya Regrier passed away a week ago, Friday. She had the same prognosis as David. Somehow David had some sort of brain cancer. She got the exact same thing, and my wife and I we spoke with Tanya maybe about I guess maybe 8 to 10 weeks ago. We spoke with her for almost an hour. She knew she was going to die, but she was laughing the whole time we were talking to her. So it was pretty amazing. And she was an amazing artist. Maybe Ethan, you could post something about her art and what she was about. But it was you've been to her place, and you know what that whole the synergy they both had was pretty amazing. So it's just a sad thing to have now this other loss. So yeah, so
Yeah.
so
Thank you
I just
so
wanted to
much.
make that announcement. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing, Wayne. Yeah. Yeah, I concur. If you haven't if you're not aware of Tanya Regeer, I highly recommend you look her up. I will bring something up, um, find a link at least. I think she's probably got a website, but if you Google her, you'll see she's been a pretty prolific artist. Um, got a Wikipedia page. That means something. I can see that right
Yeah.
now when I'm Googling. I'll put a link to her or her website in the chat. But she was a dancer earlier on in her life, and then became an artist and sculptor. And she also, I got a chance to talk to her after David passed away. I got the privilege to spend some time with her. Um, Went over there a couple times to their place when I was visiting Los Angeles, and she shared with me things about David, and we looked at some of his poetry. It was really beautiful to spend some time with her. Carl Lieberman visited as well with me one day, and then he had to go, and it was just me and her for a while, and it was a beautiful time. I'm really glad I got to share it with her. But yeah, she got to tell me a little bit of her story. I think she was working with mannequins for a while, and I guess in this industry, there's somebody needs to design mannequins, and so for the bread and butter work to make some dough, she was designing mannequins. Um, but she's also a sculptor, and so if you see the type of sculptures that she creates, they're very much an homage to the human form, especially the human female form, and just really beautiful creative stuff. Interesting fact that she was so uh, great at what she did, both within the technical realm of building mannequins and doing the art, doing the sculpture. If you remember, there was a movie that came out, I think in the 80s, maybe the 90s, I don't know, called Mannequin, and they used her mannequins for that movie. um, so she was pretty high up there in lots of realms of what she did. Impeccable uh, person and artist. Their house was so beautiful, sculptures in his yard and on the walls, and beautiful decorations and grand pianos everywhere. And you get to see it if you check out David's master classes. We spent some time, just doing a look at their property and some of the art as well for some of the programs that we did with them. So I recommend it. I think I put a link in the chat to her website, so you can check that out and look her up. Definitely worth a moment to explore the world of Tanya Regeer. And she's probably one of those people, similar to David, where, after passing, will not be forgotten on a broader scale and maybe even more remembered, for the wonderful contributions she's made. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so Wayne let me know just today that he felt like this was for sharing. I totally concurred. And so, Wayne, thank you so much
Thank you, Wayne.
for helping create a moment for that.
Okay.
All right. Let's get on with the show. And we'll talk to our primary guests today. And if it feels necessary to later on, after we're done with the main conversation, we can chat about Tanya if it feels appropriate. But let me give an introduction to our guest today. You may or may not know his name, Glen Bingham. And Glen is a second generation piano technician and now founder of the Center for Piano Technology. Glen is the former chief piano technician for Steinway & Sons Music Technology Department and played an integral role in the development, production, and training for Steinway Stereo. Glen is a passionate educator who has trained hundreds of piano technicians around the world. And what we're going to do today is get a little bit of his background and his journey, and really dive into these projects that he's building right now around providing excellent education for the industry. So welcome, Glen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ethan. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a huge fan of the show, and I've probably listened to these shows twice on the Apple podcasts. being
Nice.
Dave. So
I love
big,
it.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I love that we started putting them out as podcasts. I mean, I wanted to put them out as podcasts earlier, but it's, it takes some logistics to get it going, and it didn't end up until recently. We just started doing these archival episodes, and I've
Well, they
been
hold
very, what's that?
they hold up, you know.
They
Even
hold up.
a
Yeah,
couple years
yeah.
old, they're great. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I've just been really pleasantly surprised by the impact and like the different people that are tuned in all over the world. And um, we have our live audience here on Saturdays, and that I can concretely see. But it's interesting now. I'll just be chatting to, random people, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was listening to this or that, and it's cool. So great. Well, let's get started with a bit of your background. You said this is a second generation thing. I'm sure, you had moments in your life of choosing your career, and it may or may have shifted, between music and pianos and totally other directions. But how did you settle into this domain? How did this all get started?
Well, how it got started and how I settled in two different things. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, the second generation piano technician thing. My dad was a graduate of the North Bennett Street School back in the early 80s after he got a degree from Berklee College of Music. Um, and so he built his piano tuning business down in the South Jersey area, and on the Jersey Shore. So I grew up under a piano, and as a 12-year-old, he'd have me putting bridle straps on spinet actions in the basement, or plastic elbows, replacing plastic elbows. So um, it was one of these things where I swore I would never do this. I would never become a piano tuner. Um, so I tried my hardest not to be. Um, and but I don't know, I was actually, it's one of those things, like the more I would do it, the more pleasure I would get from it, and I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at this, or I like this, so in the mid to late 90s, my dad got into piano disc retrofit kits or installations, and he was doing tons of these in the Jersey, in the New Jersey area. So on the weekends I would go and help him with that, and I just sort of through osmosis just you know became pretty proficient at it. I could almost do an installation by myself when I was like 16 years old. And but yeah, I went briefly to Rutgers, where I know that's your alma mater, and also where you one of your mentors works there, or works there as well. But
Yeah,
I
Dave Miller. I
yes,
don't
Dave.
think I've had him on the program, but I need to soon. So hopefully we'll get him on Radio Hour sometime soon.
Yeah, Dave is still kicking. He's still the main head honcho down at Mason Gross. Um, so yeah, I was at Rutgers briefly, then I quit and joined a rock band and was doing the rock and roll thing for about 5 years. And towards the end of that, I serendipitously ran into a blind piano tuner in the West Village when we were burning our CDs, when burning CDs was like a thing. Um, in
But
the
the youngsters, there's no fire involved.
we had a
Burning
bonfire where
CDs.
we're burning.
This is actually producing music, not destroying it.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, randomly there was a blind piano tuner in the office there where we were doing this, and he and I struck up a conversation. By the end of the conversation, he says, I'll start sending you some work. And like at the time, I didn't have a toolkit. I hadn't touched a piano in over 5 years. I'm living in New York. I knew nothing, really about the piano service business in New York City. Um, And I just thought nothing of it. And then just a week later, I would just start getting these calls from his customers asking for a replaced string or a broken hammer or whatever, stuff that he couldn't do. I was able to do. Um, so that's how I got back into it when I was in my early 20s, after, a hiatus. So I mean, I could go on and on, but long story short, I stayed in New York 15 some odd years, and during that time I worked for a rental company that would do all the service on Broadway. So I was running around Broadway doing tons of upright pianos in theaters, and then found my way to Steinway and Sons. Then I was at Faust Harrison, then I was back at Steinway. And the last couple jobs I had with Steinway were the chief technician role for Steinway Spirio, which was just incredible. That job took me around the world, and I loved working on that product. I think it's an incredible piano. And then the last gig I had with Steinway was running their authorized service plan program, which is sort of like Uber for Steinway customers, where a customer can use an app to connect with a Steinway approved technician and create an appointment and pay for their service and all this. So that last job was that taught me a lot about the current state of piano technicians in the United States. It just put me in touch with hundreds of piano tuners that were not just there for like, because with the training program, it's quite different from when you're running a service program, so um, so that's kind of my last role at Steinway. And now I recently have gone out on my own, and I left so that I could start my new passion, which is the Center for Piano Technology.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know I've talked to you behind the scenes, a handful of times over the past couple of years. I mean, this has been brewing for quite a while. Yeah. When did you first get the idea that you would wanted? Yeah, I would love to know, when did you first get the idea that you want to do an independent educational thing? When did you
Mm.
first go, maybe I should take this seriously? When did you, get to the point where you're like, oh, this is actually happening?
Yeah. Okay. So when I first just started thinking about an educational program for technicians, um, my idea was sort of like um, just like a one-off like experience or something where we would, you know, go out to like the woods or something and just put pianos in cabins and just in a place where people could work on their not just
Crap.
technique but their craft, their unique approach to tuning, in a place that just, it's okay to just experiment. And I didn't know what that was for like a year. I was really just running it over in my mind. I was even like I was just looking at all different things. It was cool. And I did a lot of reading and talked to a lot of people. So that was about a year. And then somebody, I think it was my wife, or almost simultaneously, it was like, it's a trade school. What you're talking about is a trade school. And so that was like a year of like thinking about that. So it's 2 years. And then um, I quit my job, and it was you know, just here we go. Um, so that's
And
it.
on good terms, by the way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the team over there was pretty supportive of your journey. Yeah. And
Steinway
you're
was,
still working with Steinway as like a consultant or something, yeah?
yeah. I'm now a technician on that platform. You know, I went from managing it to being a service tech on that platform. Um, yeah, Steinway's been very supportive. And in fact, I when I gave notice, you know, I ended up stretching it out longer and longer throughout last year. So we worked me and Steinway worked together to figure out a, you know, mutually beneficial exit strategy. So I thank them for that, and you know, it's all good.
Awesome. So tell us about the programs that you're developing. I know that you have your first cohort of students coming up this year doing just basically the basics, like getting started with tuning, getting out there as a technician and knowing what to do and how to actually tune a piano in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And so tell us about the different, because you have, I think, about three different main lines of education right now that you're focusing on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so to go back to that, like 2 years ago, the idea of taking professional technicians and allowing them the space and time to experiment. That is that's the vision behind our professional development classes, our continuing education classes. So we're offering right now there's two continuing education workshops. One is an aural tuning workshop, and one is a touch regulation workshop. Both of them are 5 days long. They are intensive, methodical, method-based, hands-on practice, critique, you know, practice. It's 5 days of work using these methods that we've developed. And the intent, so for the aural tuning workshop, the idea is it is designed for somebody who is currently an ETD tuner who has wanted to transition to a full-time aural tuner. They know they can. They've probably, let's say they've passed the PTG test already. Maybe they even went to North Bennett Street School, and yet they're working every day, you know, using the machine, and that's kind of why they can't find that moment to just go all in on the aural tuning. So and I made this program because I know there's folks out there that do this. You know, I know who these people are, and I was thinking of them when I created it. And oh, by the way, I was one of them. You know, when I was in the beginning of my career, I was just an ETD tuner, cyber tuner, cranking out tunings. Wanted, you know, I wanted that challenge of doing like aural tuning, but I could never find the moment to switch. Luckily for me, like I landed a job at Steinway back in 2008. They said my tuning sucked, and yet they allowed me to like stay on, and they helped me develop. And then, you know, after about, you know, it's actually like if you're doing, here's my opinion, if you're doing 20 tunings a week, you're making your living doing tunings with an ETD. The transitioning to the aural tuning, the ability to do aural tuning in the same way, it's not rocket science. You're already 90% there because your body knows like how to tune. It's really okay. Here's what it is. Because you'll hear, I'll call them old timers. You hear old timers say, I tuned by ear for 20 years, and then I got Cybertuner, TuneLab, whatever, and now I have less aural fatigue at the end of the day. I just feel better, you know, and that's real. I believe that too, but in my opinion, because when you look at the old timers in the Steinway concert department, they're tuning by ear all the time, doing sometimes 8 tunings a day, you know, how come they're not saying the same thing about the oral fatigue, right? Here again, this is my opinion. My opinion is that what we're talking about is not listening fatigue, but rather decision fatigue. Because the ETD, we're able to offload all that, the burden of making a choice when we're listening, to a note. We're able to say, it says I can move on. It says I can move on. It says, and that's powerful, right? I mean, yeah, of course you're gonna feel less fatigue, but I think what the longtime oral tuners, I'm just going to use like the Steinway Concert Department as an example. What has happened is the body has taken over. The body is able to intuitively know when it's correct. They're no longer like mulling over and just questioning, like, is that right? Is that right? Let me do a check. Let me do a check. Let me do a check. It's bang, bang, bang. Their mind is thinking about something else. Like we all think about something else when we're tuning. That is what I intend with the oral tuning class, is to give your body the intuitive power to tune and get your mind out of it, because it actually is going to make better, faster decisions. And we wear ourselves out when we're just like banging our head against the wall, like trying to like get, a perfection,
Right.
challenge.
Yeah. I'd love to make a few comments. There's a few things that I'm thinking of as you say all this. Well, remember all the points. One, I probably mentioned it before in the program, but there's 4 stages of learning. There is, there's, what is it? It's consciousness and competence are the 2 things that will be going on. So you start out with unconscious incompetence. Yes. Then you go to conscious incompetence. And then you go to conscious competence, and you go to unconscious competence. Okay, so let's unpack that. So unconscious incompetence. You're ready, you're gung-ho, you're going to do this thing because you don't even know how bad you are. You don't even know what you're not doing right. And it's almost like an ignorance is bliss kind of attitude. You're going to dive in, you're going to try it out. Then you start learning from a mentor, you start practicing it, and then you start noticing all the places where you have no idea what you're doing. But the upside of it is you're aware of it. That's the conscious incompetence stage of learning. Then, since you've become conscious of all these factors, you get to this stage of learning where you can do them correctly, you do things correctly, but you do have to be conscious of it. You have to think about it. You have to put some attention in the domain. But what you're talking about is that final stage, is unconscious competence. And when you're at that stage, it's exactly like you said, the more you try to think about it, the worse you do, because it's ingrained in your system. And if you try to be conscious about it, you're accessing extra mental resources that do not need to be accessed. And by accessing them, they get in the way of actually doing, so that makes sense to me. And that's the type of thing people talk about. An example of this that I was thinking of when you were talking is sometimes when I would tune the piano, I get mixed results with this, but you know how you get a client every once in a while and they want to chat you up while you're tuning a piano. And yep. I have been fascinated that sometimes when they're chatting me up and I'm tuning piano, I go back and I listen to my tuning and I'm like, this is like one of my best tunings. Like I thought that it would have been worse because they're distracting me. But in essence, they were distracting me from all the dumb stuff that would have been going on in my head that would distract from the tuning. And like you said, my system knew how to do it, so it was just going ahead and tuning the piano. And there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Oh, the concept of a forcing function. Do you know what a forcing function is?
Forcing?
Forcing function. So this is a design concept. And there's a couple of different ways it gets implemented, but a forcing function is anything that makes it so you don't have a choice about doing something. So I remember when I was first tuning, I had one of those Sanderson AccuTuners, the blue box, and unfortunately or fortunately, there were moments in my progress where it broke, or I literally like lost it. And it broke at one point, and I was like so like nervous when it broke, but I had to tune the piano by ear. And then I didn't know how to like send it back and get it reprogrammed and all this. So there was this time where there was a forcing function I had to tune by ear, and it was fascinating because I didn't have the device. I got better at ear tuning, and then I had this phase where I just did ear tuning for a while. Then I went back and got it working. Then I was doing it. Then it broke again, and so I would use that as a forcing function for myself to get into the ear tuning. And it's kind of like what you're saying. If you don't have something that's taking the reins and saying you have to do this, it's very difficult for it to happen. And in design, when you talk about forcing functions, um, they often say something is poorly designed if it has to have instructions on it. So if the door says push, it's a poorly designed door. You should, when you walk up to it, you should know you have to push it or you have to pull it just by the way it's designed, right? And so that's another way that forcing functions get implemented is if the design of something makes it so the user of that thing doesn't have to actually analyze how it works. It just happens. So I love all those pieces of the philosophy.
Yeah, to find the flow state. That's the other word I was, thinking of too. When you were saying that, that's kind of the unconscious
Unconscious competence.
competence. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Flow state.
So can you tell us, I mean, is there more to say about the sort of I don't know if you even mentioned the name of this 30-30 method, right? And by the way, I mentioned it in my email that I sent out to folks. Our masterclass this month is going to be with you on the 18th. I'm going to come out to Jersey and hang out with you and do some filming in about a week. And we're going to talk about that 30-30 method, right? So tell us about it. Tell us what's the idea there.
So the idea is exactly what you're talking about, a forcing function. I wanted to create a method that would accelerate a professional technician's ability to feel confident producing aural tunings once they're in someone's home. Because that's the thing, that's the fear, is you're standing there in front of the piano, you have your iPhone, and you're like, I could just bang this out and do a great tuning, or I could, where do I start? Where do I start? Like, what temperament do I use? I know all these different temperaments from, so this method, the 30-30 method is, I mean, look, it's heavily based on the Steinway tuning system, if there is one. I mean,
not the right way, it's not the wrong way, it's the Steinway.
Yeah, so the Steinway way is, from what I've seen, I mean, is an A to A temperament, and you use a single temperament strip, and then basically a single mute for everything else. So it's a very simple muting technique, very fast. You always tune to A440, meaning you don't float the pitch. And what I have found with that approach, where when you don't float the pitch, is you're always bringing it back to A440. It's like the last octave in the bass and the last octave in the treble, they don't move. Like your middle may go like this, but the ends just they're going to stay there. So it's you're actually only talking about like 68 notes that you're really tuning. So we break each step of the process down to a very specific time frame. So 30-30 method means 30 minutes, 30 seconds. So we start 30 seconds, you mute the temperament area. Then you do 1 minute to set A440. Then you take 4 minutes to do the temperament. Then you do 7 minutes to go from there to the bass. Then you do 6 minutes to go back through the temperament section, pulling it out as you go. And then you have 12 minutes to do the treble. It's nearly, it's almost impossible. I mean, and that's the point. The point is to just push you along and accept whatever is happening in the moment and just keep going and say, it's not you. It's not you. It's the time. It's not like, or the piano. So it really takes the burden of doubt, taking the doubt off yourself. So the class, okay, so I mean, there's the method. Everybody can take it and start doing it on their own, but the class is you come to the Center for Piano Technology, which is in Newark, New Jersey. We have partnered with the Newark School of the Arts, and they have about 20 pianos. And every student's going to do about 5 tunings a day by ear. Come in on Monday, 5 tunings. So by the end of the day, you're doing 20 to 25 tunings, all by ear, using the same method. And when you return to work on the next Monday, you're gonna put the machine down and just do the same thing because your body's now in it. Are you gonna on
You
that month?
also take their ETD and you burn it.
We burn
You
it
melt,
just
you
like
melt it.
yeah.
Just like this.
You throw it off the roof. um, um, when you go back to work on Monday, are you going to be able to do a 30-minute tuning on the customer's piano? No, that's not the point. The point is you're not going to sit there and say, what temperament should I use? What mutes should I use? It's already just coming out of the bag, and so what I do now in my tuning practice is I use a timer, and I try to do this at each appointment. And what usually ends up happening is I'm tuning the piano twice. And so it takes about an hour 15, hour and a half, which is, what I would kind of normally do with an ETD. But I've actually gone through it twice. And on the second pass, it's not as big a lift, as the first one. So
I think I like that. And I think, I'm reflecting on my own style as a piano tuner. I mean, I have consciously made sacrifices in various domains to live a life and a career that is more flexible than sort of like static. So I do a bunch of different things. I run a business, I do this podcast, I've done other things in technology, but that does mean, and there's positive and negatives. When I tune a piano nowadays, it's like every piano tuning is like a creative act. You know, I'm like I'm reinventing piano tuning anytime I tune a piano. And that could be fun, but it also can be kind of grueling when it's like, oh wow, like it's been a while since I started. And the reason that just is because I'm not out there, tuning a few pianos a day. And what you're talking about is essential if you are doing that, to have a method. And the
Yes.
method creates the rails on which you can run your machine, and it makes it quicker, it makes it better, it makes it more efficient. And ideally, you're not thinking about it. There may be a creative moment in that process, at the end when you're sort of like nuancing and doing a little bit of touch up this or that. But when you know how to do something right, yeah, it reminds me of practicing. They say that I always like the moment where I switched from thinking practice makes perfect to perfect practice makes perfect. If you practice something the wrong way or inconsistently, then that's the result you get when you do it over and over again. But if you have a right way of doing it, there's no reason to vary it. You create a method that you do it the way that's right or the way that you want to do it, and you just keep cycling through it and improving it every time you do it. So I like that. Can you tell us about so you told us about the 30-30. You're also taking technicians from scratch, which isn't teaching them the 30-30 method. This is more to just get new technicians into the field and give them a strong foundation. That's another line. Can you just touch upon that and what's going on there?
Yeah, so here is, I mean, I think there is a crisis in our industry of, folks retiring, leaving, or, passing away, leaving gaps throughout, the industry. And what I've seen mostly with the Steinway authorized service plans, and please understand, I'm not making any moral judgment about this. This is just an observation. And in fact, I mean, I just think it's so interesting. Technology has allowed young people to pick up an app, to watch programs like this, to do other online programs, and use a program like Gazelle, use online advertising, a nice website, social media, and they have a full book of business. They are fully engaged. They're too busy to take work from dealers. In fact, when dealers, say, well, fit us into your schedule, then it's like they can't afford to take the work from the dealer because the dealer's, paying like a wholesale rate, and, and their customers are paying double. Holy cow, that is so different from the world like you and I grew up in, where, I know you worked for like a dealer in New Jersey, and I worked for dealers in New Jersey, where there was
For
like,
the same dealer in New Jersey, East Coast Piano.
well, I was down south, but it's almost like a mirror, I was at
Oh
Freehold
wait,
Music.
no, you were Freehold, but we worked with Dina Torsivia, who was at
Yeah.
Wolf. That was the common thread, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because Dina wound up at Steinway in their service department for a while.
Got it.
But anyway, showrooms used to have hundreds of pianos, and you could be a young person wanting to get into the trade, or someone, let's say switching careers. I'm saying young person, but new to the business. And they could be put on the, junky upright pianos way in the back and just have a field day. That does not exist anymore. Showrooms have become smaller, more boutique, higher end, and gosh darn it, that's why I love David Anderson and everything he was saying. I just 100% agreed. It's going to the high end. Everything's going to the high end. It's already there. Chinese made pianos too. They are incredible instruments now, I mean, they rival anything that we were making in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's amazing. So this has informed my perspective on what we need from a trade school. Okay. Because people are doing this whether we like it or not. People are picking up apps and this and that. They're fully engaged. They're professional piano technicians. We can't say they're not. But they don't know what they don't know. And so for the Center for Piano Technology beginner program is designed to take someone in 4 weeks, spread out over the year. And at the end of that, the goal is to have them able to tune a piano in an hour and a half, which is a pretty high bar to set. But I think that hour and a half mark is really where they are then useful to like a dealer or a showroom venue, whatever. Because if you can't tune a piano in an hour and a half, they're just not going to be able to hire you, even, as a contractor tuning junky uprights. So we are teaching the students using an ETD. So they're going to be using an ETD, and week 1 is in January, week 2 is in April, week 3 is in June, week 4 is in September, October. The idea is that week 1, we just get them up and running, tuning unisons, very, very, very basic. But it's going to be highly focused on tuning, whereas other programs might try to, go very deep on all kinds of repairs or string replacement. We'll get there, but again, if they can't tune a piano in an hour and a half, then they're gonna not be able to be sustainable, sustain themselves. So week 1, they come, we get them up and running, and then they're expected to practice when they go home. We're going to help set them up with partners where they can just continue to practice until they come back in April. And then we build upon that skill set and they go back, so because as the learning happens when they're alone in the room with the piano. They have to have that experience. So, but I'm looking for ways to accelerate that whole process, because we don't have time to spend 2 years, 5 years apprenticing. Because we need to do it now. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve, and I'm hoping to build this.
Yeah, and it was mentioned earlier, but the theme with what you're doing is you're giving people kind of are craving that hands-on mentorship capacity. And I think, as I've seen it, people come to us at Floating Piano Factory and they get the opportunity to get out and practice. They get a community of people with the other technicians and some of the folks that we use for mentors to get that. But I've seen lots of people who are trying to find their way in, and people do end up, the only resource that they have is like the North Bennett Street, or to go to a dealer, and you kind of almost have to, or not a dealer, but I guess a dealer, and kind of almost like sign over your life. Okay, sign on the dotted line. Yes, we'll give you a salary. We have to wake up at 6 in the morning, go home at 2 p.m. and just like working like a slave just to learn how to tune a piano, basically. So it's nice to have a resource where people can get hands-on experience in an independent fashion, and they can do what they want with it, right? If they want to go, get a contract with the dealer, that's great. But they have choices. They have the foundation. It sounds like a good variety. We're gonna wrap up here momentarily. Make sure you mention. I think we didn't mention the sort of you're doing some regulation course as well. So mention that, and then anything else you want to say before we wrap up, just about what's going on and how people can find out about it.
Sure. Yeah. So for the professional technicians, we have the aural tuning week, and then we have what we call the intuitive touch regulation week. And so this is a method we've developed to, again, take the guesswork out of it and to just flow through regulation procedures using and developing your sensitivity, your touch sensitivity. So the only measuring tool we use is a key dip block. We don't use hammer to string measurement or let off measurement. No. And we'll show you why. We'll show you how. And you'll do 2 regulations a day. So at the end of the week, you're going to be doing about 8 to 10 grand piano regulations. Like, where else are you going to get that experience so that when you go back home, it's just under your fingertips, or at least it's starting to be, because again, you're not really going to learn anything till you're alone in the room or on the stage with the piano and it's dark and you got to finish. Where are you going to spend your time? Because if we had all the time in the world, we can make everything beautiful and perfect. But we never have that, and we don't have, you're going to burn yourself out with the decision making. And yeah, so there's those two programs for the professionals, and we have the basic piano technology 4-week program for beginners. You can find all that at pianotechschool.org. info@pianotechschool.org. You can send me an email. And thanks, Ethan. I'd love to hear some questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, sure. And I'll make sure I'm putting some links in the chat. We have a special link you can click here that goes to the piano techschool.org, which I'm putting in here. And then let me go ahead and copy paste the social link or your Instagram and these email addresses that people might be interested in. And I will put that on in here in Zoom. And let me also put that in our live stream chat because people out there on Facebook, and I think we got our Facebook working in the middle of this. Yeah, people out on Facebook can check it out too and make sure they know what's going on. I'll grab that and awesome. Yeah. Any final questions or comments from anyone? I'm really excited about what you're doing, Glenn. Like I said, you and I have been in touch over the years, and I've watched your career, and take everything very seriously. Clearly, you do a great job. You connected me with some of your colleagues at Steinway, and they're all very impressed with you as a technician, and as someone who started an educational project, and it's not easy. You have to want to do it. And you have to have some passion for education. And so, but you need support, and your program is, and these are paid programs, but you want this to be a not-for-profit type of organization. So we should mention that, because I don't think you mentioned it, but the framework is of a not-for-profit with the mission of educating the community and having that person focus. I see Mary Brocious says, thanks for the session. She's going to check out the classes. Mary Brocious. That's awesome. Mary's attended some of ours as well. All right, great stuff. Anybody else have any questions or comments before we roll out? There's never any pressure. Sometimes we get conversational, sometimes we don't. Also, if anybody had anything to say about Tanya or mention anything that wanted to say, that's fine as well for this space. Triangle Piano Service says, what theoretical instruction for tuners? Does that make sense as a question?
What theoretical instruction? What? I think you're muted.
What theoretical instruction for tuners? Maybe reframe the question.
For the new tuners in the program, the basic piano technology program? Yeah. Good question. It's and listen, I'm not doing this like in a vacuum. If you go to the website, you'll see the folks that are helping me develop the curriculum and are going to be teaching the class with me. And there you'll see and they're going to be participating in different classes. Like it's not all the same class they're going to be in, but we decided that like week 1 of the basic piano technology class, we're going to go very, very light on the piano tuning theory. We're going to have them just jump right in and get the muscle memory started. And because it's really not until you know what's going on that you can even, begin to ask and understand what it is that, an octave is stretched because the piano wire, the stiffness of the piano wire. And that's different from why we're tempering intervals, and I mean, it's just a lot to absorb. So we're making choices based on tuning the piano in an hour and a half at the end of the 4 weeks. It's like, what are the things that, and yeah, we're gonna have to not cover stuff that other programs cover. And they can read it in the Arthur Reblitz book. They can find it online. They can find it on technician master classes. It's
Yeah.
out there. It's very accessible now these days. It's not a secret.
I'm looking on the side. I didn't see this earlier. I see you have Keith Satovia on the team,
Yeah.
instructing as well. And
Oh.
Keith and I went to Rutgers together, and I have the privilege of bringing him into the fold as a piano technician way back in the day.
Nice.
Mary says, do you ever cover regulating spinets and drop actions?
Nope.
No, thank you. But that's if that's something that you're interested in, Mary, we might be able to cover that at BPM, but be able to get into that content.
Let's go. It's the high end people.
Yeah. Yes, please. Okay, cool. No, but I think there's various avenues, and yeah, when it comes down to spinets and drop actions, there's some fun to be had. And there's also some quagmires to fall into. But there's no harm in knowing what you're doing, especially if that's where you live. And that's all right. I think we're about a couple minutes over the hour, so I think maybe it's probably about time to wrap it up. Mary says, "Fun. I have a lot of them around here." Yes, yes. I know that's the thing where people are in different parts of the country. You have what you have. That's in your area, and people are doing incredibly different careers and different domains depending on the type of instruments and type of communities they live in. So,
What area of the country are you located in, Mary?
yeah, Mary, where are you? I forget. I know I should know this, but where is Mary? Erie, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a big state. I don't know how far that is from.
Well, Erie is like
Jersey.
western, like on the lake, I think. So
Yeah,
it's out there.
yeah. All right. Let me walk us off. Way the other side from New Jersey. Yeah, that sounds about right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Glenn. Thanks for everyone for hopping on the session. Thanks, Wayne, for jumping in and sharing about time of the year. And what a wonderful tribute. And it was really great to spend some time on Tanya and also remember David as well. And I will say we've reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio. Our thanks to Glenn for joining us and our audience here as well. We're also brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you join us by signing up for this session individually, make your life more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, $16 a month fee for recording of today's session in a member area, automatic registration for each weekly session. Sign up at bit.ly/join-PTRH, bit.ly/join-PTRH, and we'll see you all again next week. All right. Adios.